Alright, so now this video is dealing with the menus of Sketchpad. Just a brief description of what each menu section will do. So in the File menu, you can go to a new sketch, which just makes a new file. You can open files. You can go to Sketchpad Lesson Link or Sketch Exchange. At this time, Sketch Exchange is up and running, and it will essentially be a library of pre-made sketches that other people have created and want to share. You save and save as and close through the File menu. The Document Options piece of the menu allows you to add a page. I think that we've done that when looking at your file and then adding a page to that. You can create duplicate files. So I can imagine maybe wanting to create a triangle and then taking that triangle and building off of it, but I don't want buttons or anything. So I could just go to File, Document Options, Add Page, Duplicate of Page 1, and then I could say, okay, well, let's find the midpoints, the sides of those triangles. And then I could take a File, Document Options, Add Page, Duplicate Page of Page 2, and then I could go to Construct, and then I could construct these segments, and then I might ask, well, what's the relationship between the 4 triangles that have been built and the original triangle? And I could walk my students through this exploration. It's something that I use now and then. If I'm wanting to try something but save the work I've had on an existing page, I just create duplicates. To remove pages, you can go to Document Options, Remove Page, and Remove Page. You can also mix those pages, move them around. So here we are. I'm going to just make a selection rectangle and delete that because you all don't need to see that triangle. Other features of this File menu, I can go to Page Setup, Print, Preview, and Print. Most people are using what they had their triangle and they really wanted to use it on a document. Most people would just select it, go to Edit, Copy, and then in a PowerPoint or Microsoft Word document, one would just paste it in there and progress from there. So that's how you can make your assessments or worksheets professional. Other piece menus. The Edit menu will undo and redo. The typical cut, copy, paste. As well, you have action buttons. So you might say, okay, well, I'm going to construct a segment. I'm going to construct, I'm going to construct its midpoint, and then I'm going to construct the line that's perpendicular to the segment through this point. If I go to perpendicular line, notice this tool will actually mark a right angle. That point there is helping with the tool. I can just hide that point in the display menu. But can you imagine that I might want to start with a segment but not have this geometry shown at the very beginning? I can go to Edit, Action Buttons, Hide Show. And now I can hide these objects. But then I might want to show those objects. Hide Show. That's a very helpful button. As well, in Edit, Action Buttons, you can create animation buttons, movement, presentation, sound. As your Sketchpad skills develop, you'll want to use those. The display menu allows you to change the size of a point, even though points don't have size. On a smartboard or a Promethean board, you might want a point to style to be large. You might want it to be very small. You can change your line style. You can have a solid, dashed, or dotted. You can change the color. You can work with the text. If you select geometry and you want to hide a little bit of it, select it, hit display, hide points. You can, in the display menu, you could show the labels of those points. As well, you can access this text tool to do that. Also in the display, you can provide some motion by animating points and progressing from there. One thing that you might want to show is here I have a triangle, and let's say that you always wanted to show that the sum of the lengths of two sides of a triangle is always greater than the third side. Well, here I've measured all the lengths of a triangle. I can go to now number, and in my calculator I could add up two sides and then put this beside that third side to show it's always greater. Then I could just animate this point. I could animate all the points and look at multiple instances. But that sometimes gets a little overwhelming for the students. So you can do that in your display menu. I'm going to stop my motion. In fact, I'm going to Control Z out because I really don't need all of this at this time. In the Construct menu, also in display, you can hide the text palette, which is right here, the motion controller, or the toolbox. I can't imagine that you'd want to hide your toolbox unless you're only presenting something that you've already built. The Construct menu is where the geometry is. Notice that if I put a point on the plane and I go to Construct, I have no geometric power. But if I put 2 points on my plane, and if I select these 2 points, notice I'm with my selection arrow, I go to Construct. I could construct a segment with those endpoints, a ray with the first point selected to be the start point, the second point selected to be the direction, a line that goes through those 2 points, a circle by center and radius. That's what construction's all about. Then, if I select this point and this line segment, notice I could construct a circle by center and radius, or I could construct a parallel or perpendicular line. Notice that when I construct that perpendicular, it's always perpendicular. It's a dynamic perpendicular line. In fact, I could even mark the angle to show the right angle. I often will just hide this point as it's there so that you can have that right angle tool. And so often we're hiding some of our geometry. Also in the Construct menu, you have the angle bisector. So here I have an angle. If I were to select that angle, I can now construct its bisector. I could measure an angle. You can measure an angle easily if it's just one angle. You can just select what you see the angle to be, and the computer will interpret, hey, you want to measure that angle. If I selected this, notice I could measure that angle. But if I select all this, there are many angles that could be measured. So I have to be a little bit more specific with my assignment. If you select 3 points, you've defined an angle. The 3 points would have to have the middle point being the vertex of the angle. So if I were to select this point first, this point second, this point, as long as I selected that point second, I would be happy. I could select that, and then I could select this point, and this point. Go to measure and measure the big angle. And then I could demonstrate a pretty nifty feature in geometry about the angle bisector. I could go to number, calculate. I could say 2 times the measure of that small angle, and I'll demonstrate that it has the same numeric value as the angle that I measured. And that's because I created that bisector. So that is quite helpful. And H is now able to be moved around, and I can go and demonstrate quite a bit. The key here is often. When you're in Number Calculate, you will click on numeric measurements. You're not going to type in 27.85 because that won't be the dynamic feature. You want to be able to move things and see constants develop. Other features of our construct menu. In the construct menu, you could construct a circle by center and point. The first point you select is the center. The second point is a point defining the radius. As well, if you were to have a circle and you were to select two endpoints and the circle, you could define an arc. And here I've just defined that arc. Notice that now my circle is dashed and my arc is solid. I can measure that angle. I can measure that length. I can create an arc interior. There you go, a little pie piece. As well, I can create the circle interior by selecting the circle, construct circle interior. So, this gives you a little bit of an idea about the construct menu. As well, 3 points define an arc. So if I were to select these 3 points and go to construct arc through 3 points, boom, I have a circle. Very powerful. The transform menu is so wonderful. The transformations of rotation, translation, reflection, and dilation are very helpful to our students. Here I could have a triangle, and I could even go to graph, define coordinate system. I could select the vertices of my triangle and measure those x coordinates. And then I can select this line and I could mark that as a mirror. And then I could select my geometry and I could reflect that in that mirror. If I don't choose a mirror, the computer is going to find the mirror that is the most in the center of the screen. I can then measure these x coordinates, and lo and behold, I can look for mathematical relationships, very fine numeric mathematical relationships. Other transformations that I can perform, I might want to mark this as a center. I'm left double clicking on it. I could then select my triangle here. Notice I'm going to deselect that x-axis. I could go to transform and dilate it by 1/2 with that center. As well, I could rotate it 90 degrees. As well, I could translate that. And I might want to translate it 70 degrees up 1 centimeter. I can select these points and see if there are any mathematical relationships when I look at the x-coordinates. Very interesting. As well, another feature that you'll really like on this on Sketchpad, in the graph region, the snap points. I used it tremendously when I taught middle school. Snap points will take each point to integral values on the plane. Very helpful when talking about rate of change and the such. Number will be your calculator mainly, and graph will be creating a Cartesian coordinate system. Window allows you to access multiple open files, and help is amazing. These welcome videos and using Sketchpad are excellent.